We are live, 6:49, a little bit early. A couple things. First of all, um, tonight we're going to talk about whether or not I have been going down I want to run the the metro at Bonneville. So I'm making a list. I'm checking it twice. I just went over with one of the viewers, Chris, and talked to him about. I had a few questions specifically about what's going on with the interchangeability between the Metro motor that I have, which is a Mark II 1 liter, and the Mark I Sprint, because I have two Sprint motors that I used before the car was stolen that I was building up. One of them is basically a stock one that has a ported head that we were doing work on to get good fuel mileage. Not so much for power, although it did end up making 120 at the tires with the stock turbo, which is the highest I've ever done with the stock turbo. There's more there because we didn't use the 85. The clutch was slipping a little at the end. So there's maybe a little more in that turbo. And also we were running it with the factory ECU and factory vane meter and all that. So I think that there's maybe a little bit more, but the turbo is just too small for where we would want to go. I did end up running that motor with some bigger turbos on it, and that's what I will end up doing. And we'll run that hopefully at Bonneville. So I get to go through all the funnest part for me is really all the math. It's all the calculations on gearing and tire size and all that stuff. And then what the split is between really the top gear, between fourth and fifth gear in this case. And then do we have enough power in that RPM range to pull this for the final one? Because that's really the critical one. All the other ones, you can go up and go through the RPM range first through fourth gear. You're not even going to be able to put power down, even with a 1 liter Sprint motor that makes, even when it was making 100 horsepower at the tire, you would spin the tire, one tire probably, you would spin that on the salt. So we don't, we're not concerned about that. The critical thing when you're running at Bonneville is that final gear split. And then do you have the power to pull from there to there, wherever there is, whatever those RPMs are, and then whatever that eventual top speed is. So you should have done your homework and tried to figure out at least, hey, look, like for me, what I want that thing to do is go more than 150 miles an hour, something more than that. So we need to calculate, okay, what kind of gearing is that going to take at what RPM and stuff. I don't like to run a lot of RPM. I think that that's the wrong way to go, but people get to do their own thing. For me, having a turbo motor means that you don't have to run a lot of RPM. We did that in the Civic. I didn't run more than 8,600 in the Civic, and that car went really fast and never even got a chance to run as fast as it would go because it did that speed in the 4th mile. But when we were doing the Metro or the Sprint, all I did was run it in a standing mile, which is an acceleration contest, especially for that little car, because let's face it, with 110 horsepower, whatever the tire, it's just accelerating. It's not putting all of it out there. I think the car ultimately would have gone faster, even at that low power level. It would be nice if it was an easy calculation that if you're making 120 horsepower, the thing goes 120 miles an hour. That would be really nice, right? Then if you're making 400, you get to go 400. That would be kind of cool. But at any rate, so I was discussing about the differences between these early motors that I have, particularly things like the cylinder head and the pistons and the rods and the intake manifold. Does if that cylinder head is different, is the intake manifold flange different? Is the exhaust flange different? Is the cam different? What's different about it? Not being an expert of these later Metro motors. The Sprint stuff, I did a lot of work on those, but didn't do too much on the later Metro stuff. So I have a Metro. And so what I want to do now is combine what I have and make that Metro into some kind of, Bonneville race car. And I already have the right size turbo. I have a Garrett turbo for it that will work. And if not, getting another turbo is not a big deal. But, things like, do I want to put main studs in it? Honestly, I don't think I do. But main or headsets, definitely I want to do that. An MLS gasket, which is a custom thing, which luckily this guy has. Camshafts, I'm gonna have to have a custom one ground, so it'll have to be a regrind or a weld up and regrind or a billet cam. I'm not wanting, nor do I need anything crazy for that. Hello, baby, what are you doing? I don't need anything, it's not going to be a race motor. It's not going to be an 8,000 RPM race motor. And on a 1 liter motor with that bore and stroke, we just don't need a lot of camshaft. It's not going to be able to have too much lift. I think we're kind of limited in what we can do with the cam, but I just want something more than stock. Like right now, the Metro motor has an XFI cam, which is really the smallest cam. So I can put the Turbo Sprint head on there, and it's already been ported. I have a ported one that my buddy Tom did. And so I can run that, and I can get that cam reground, either welded up or reground. And then I probably will talk to the guys at Schneider about that. Like if I can get that cam reground and can get another 15 or 20 degrees of timing out of it, that would be enough. I'm told it can go more than that. I'd like to see that, because in most of the cams that we've had reground, about 20 degrees seems to kind of be the limit. Now, if they can weld this up and do it, that would be good. And then we will have to, it's like everything. One change that you make then dictates other changes. So if we were to do a small base circle cam, now we got to readjust it. Do we have to do that with valve length, which I want to kind of put new valves in it anyway, but I'd also like to run it with the valves that are in it and just do it. Because I know that with that ported head, even the stock valves, regrinding the camshaft, and having a turbo and an intercooler and E85 and the right turbo and ice water and all that stuff and a standalone management system, I already know that it will get to where we need to get it to. Well, I'm thinking it needs to go to like 200 up the tire, and that should put me fairly comfortably at 150 miles an hour. Because the car can also be, depending on what class it's in, could be lowered at an air dam and all that stuff. And so that can work out. But before I do all that, before I take this 1 liter XFI motor apart and I have forged rods and forged pistons for it. Before I do that, do you guys want, in fact, we'll have a poll for today. Turbo. Okay, do you want to see a test comparing a small turbo to the AMR supercharger on the 1 liter Metro? So the photo that I have up on the thumbnail is the engine bay when we ran the AMR supercharger on it. The AMR supercharger was already going bad. It did make a little bit of boost. It can certainly do better than that. We can easily get, 50% or I don't know, 75% gain in power, I think, with a supercharger. The supercharger can certainly support a lot more than that. But, I don't know how much we want to overspeed it and stuff. We have the chili bomb, the David Freiberger named chili bomb for the intercooler. And that works good. That's more than enough to cool the charge air that we're doing. And what I'll do this time is I have access to a Snow Performance boost cooler setup. I also have a larger fuel pump to put in there, so we don't have to worry about a fuel flow issue. I also have a working FMU. I don't think I'm going to put a standalone in there. I can try to do the Holley, but the Holley would have to be the throttle body, and we might try this, but it would have to be a draw through setup. And I kind of would like that, honestly. It would be a draw through setup. It would be kind of cool to do the turbo thing. And now that I think about it, that's kind of something that I wanted to do while I was down there doing the turbo testing. But that would be cool before I take this thing apart. Because after I take it apart, then it's going to get machined for a MLS head gaskets, forged rods, forged pistons. The ported head needs to be put back together. I want to make sure that the valve job is done. I can't remember now. It's been so long since I ran this thing that if the head was done for a valve job, I am going to have to reposition the injectors because we welded up the injector holes. I have a custom intake manifold that it's not finished, but the tubing, the flange, and all that stuff is done. We just need to weld it together, basically. And so we'll be able to do some kind of cool stuff with that. And I can even make this manifold adjustable. Although for Bonneville, I'm thinking it's going to not be a super long one, because originally that's what I wanted to do. I was more interested in fuel mileage for this thing. And what I wanted to do was have this thing wrap around and have it be ultra long, so that I could have a little bit more torque from the manifolding, so that I didn't have to go into, so I could keep the RPM down and the vacuum down stuff. And so, you know, we could not go into boost and not go into enrichment mode. But all that fell by the wayside because we went to Bonneville, and then the clutch slipped a little bit and stopped us on our last run, or rather the Maxton mile. We did set 2 records out there. We missed the 3rd one. And then the motor got stolen because we were prepping it for Bonneville. We were putting a cage and stuff in it, which we'll have to do in the Metro, but that's not going to be too hard. So it should be fun. I'm excited about that. The car, you know, even if we just drove it out there and got to drive on the on the Bonneville sulfides in that car, it would just kind of be cool. So we'll see what you guys got going on. Looks like we're looking at like 88% yes right now, which is good. Scottish, what's going on? Braden, that's a good name for the engine or car. Yeah, disassemble Stephanie. Stephanie would be good. What's the sprint speed, please? Oh, sprint specs. The turbo sprint is 70 horsepower for the factory turbo motor. How much horsepower from the Metro? I want to put a blower on a 35 horsepower single cylinder. Yeah, that's fine. The Metro or the Metro XFI is rated at 58 horsepower, the NA one. The Sprint Turbo is rated at 70 horsepower. Will blower help with top speed, or is the turbo better for that? They both will help with top speed compared to an NA motor. But a turbo will make more power. Hey, dogs. Will make more power at any given boost level. No, next will get snapped in the back of the Sprint and land speed trim. It will be a lot faster than any stock one would. I know golden retriever alert. They're alerted. There could be like a squirrel or something, or a cat out there. Nathan, can you slip some nitrous in there? Yeah, we can, Dan. In a fuel class, we could run nitrous in there also. And we will probably run this thing. I will run it at least on E85, but maybe methanol. I mean, I haven't tried it, so I kind of want to try it on something. Maybe I can try it on methanol when next time I go down. I can run the 5.3 on methanol again. Getaway, what's going on, Eric? Eric's getting all the ads. Eric's taking them for the team. I've been enjoying going after Cletus video. Can you carry your own air in the class? You mean, can I run a compressed air supercharger? You can. We are so close to getting a dyno purchase. There you go. How much power do you think it'll make? I would like the motor to make 200 at the tire, and I don't think that that's going to be hard. But I will be very excited if I do. Definitely be getting some haters to comment the car's almost ready. 1 liter engine would be easy to feed for a long time. Yeah, if we're talking about 200 horsepower, it doesn't take very much airflow. Where's one liter Mafia? That's right. North Wales is in the house. What was the jet number on the Metro? I really want a baby shot on my D16. Your D16 will take more than we ran. I think that the one that we tried to run was, I want to say it was an 18 or a 20. I could look up the number and see, but I think that that's what was the smallest one. When you get smaller than that, you start running into problems with, you can run into problems with the orifice getting clogged. It could even freeze and just get clogged. The other thing that you can do is you can run it with a near empty bottle that has no pressure in it. So if you're not at 1,000 or 1,100 PSI and you're at 700 or 800, the flow rate of the orifice obviously goes down. When you boosted the Cadillac, it's just a head gasket they gave out. Yeah, I think so. but it's not a head gasket problem, I don't think. I think that the fueling probably wasn't equal. I don't think we had good distribution. Methanol makes more torque and a little more horsepower. I think methanol should make more power than E85. Got any quick, sketchy land speed stories? The best one is us doing this was Tom doing our jack stand dyno tuning. So we put the car up on jack stands because we had to tune it NA because we'd never run it NA. And we were going to run nitrous with it. So we wanted to tune it. So we put it up on jack stands. And then I went to wide open throttle and applied the brake to get different loads while Tom was tuning it while it was on the jack stands. It's pretty exciting. I don't think terribly effective. Howdy, sir. 55 Bel Air, Junkyard 6-liter, 255 rec port heads, LS3 intake, TKX 5-speed. What cam are you personally picking? For doing what? I would pick a stock cam if all I wanted to do is just drive it around. And then I would pick, a medium-sized cam if I wanted that. And then I'd pick a big cam if I wanted like lots of power. So you just got to tell me what are you wanting out of it? At least the head's aluminum won't piss off the head porters. Yeah, the head's already ported. So I'm not doing any more to the head. Built an engine for a UK Rover Metro that was limited. It's had to use stock style filter. So no room in the engine bay for a bigger filter or airbox. It managed 218 horsepower from 1.8 liter. Yeah, this is a 1 liter. Trying to use compressed air supercharging for the 1 liter. Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. That's why we were having that conversation. Good call on the compressor supercharging, except use 32% nitrous from the dive shop. I'm in pain, getting stale and stagnant in life. I need help jumping off the porch. Go, Tim. Go get something done. Get anything done. Anything at all. Cruiser, beat at the strip once in a while. I would err to the smaller side of the cam. 90% of people, and it might be more than that, are much happier with a milder cam than they are with the bigger cam. Because you spend more time even with a big cam, unless you're racing it. You spend way more time driving around than you do at wide open throttle. Got 240 horsepower, 1.4 liter. It'd probably be a lot of fun in that car. Yeah, I'm not looking for a 1.4 would be a whole different class. So I might as well make it a 1.5, in which case I would do a 1.5K series. But that would be a different class. Why would you run compressed air over nitrous to get the same power? I think once the numbers are in, compressed air isn't what it's made up to be. It actually is compressed air supercharging works very, very well. The charge temperature and the fact that you don't have to run. Hang on. Hey, that's enough. Yeah, that didn't work. Compressed air supercharging works very well. There's no parasitic loss associated with driving it. You outsource all of that drive assembly. The charge temperature is extremely low, and so the gains are really good. And on this application, as it was pointed out, we're not making very much power, so it will last quite a while. Why don't you guys be quiet? It's just a cat or something. You're not protecting us. Go get your brother. Go get Brady. Go get him. Is the truck doors cam good for street use? Yes, it is. Yeah, coats and customs. One of the cams that we have on at RICHARDHOLDENERPERFORMANCE.com would be good for street driving. And I think on yours, I might even pick the bigger Truck Plus cam. Sorry for making all the noise. I was cutting through your front lawn, walking to the corner store. Were you making faces making googly eyes at the dogs? Compressor supercharging works fantastic. You can also get nitrox from the dive shop. Will the bigger of the two turbos you're testing be good for a 496 Gen 6 stroker, heavily lifted truck looking for 800 horsepower with room to get to 1,000? Yeah, that turbo will easily do that. It'll do probably 1,200. Need to take it apart and add ring gap. Yeah, that's a good idea. When you're working on carbonite carboliner, Rob did a quick brake test to check the trans. AA BFS is instant glowing brakes. Yeah, you can't. That's the problem. Is that there's no cooling for them because you're not moving at all. So it's hard on stuff. And also, this is a manual trans car, so you're also loading the clutch, which is hard. The logo on the website looks good. Thank you. Yeah, we worked on that for a long time. Jimmy has to get the Trailblazers up. Yeah, but the problem is that they won't be up now because the one that they sent me to test was a RecPort one. And that's not Jimmy. That's the people that were advertising it. We thought it was a Trailblazer SS, but it turns out it's not. It's an LY6 or whatever else they're going to call the RecPort version on the different motors that they use that on. But we want a Cathedral Port one. I mean, I have factory ones and they work good, but we just want to be able to also sell that because I'm sure when I do these stories and videos on it that people are going to want those. This is a Lenco trans. Okay. But the Lenco still has a clutch in it, right? Or is it clutchless? You made it big to now have supplier issues. Well, this wasn't the supplier, really. This was us getting something off of eBay or wherever Jimmy found it. And we looked at it. I'm like, yeah, it's a Trailblazer SS intake manifold. I think that's an aftermarket one. Let's take a look at it, and because I want to test everything before I offer it for sale. How much block fuel can you get away with and still keep the engine cool enough to street drive? I don't. I'm the wrong guy to ask that. I don't know. I've never filled any motor, nor would I do that for a street-driven motor. I wonder how much boost a 400,000 mile K-Series will handle. A lot. I have a scuba compressor at home. Can I make my own? I can make my own nitrox up to 5,000 PSI. I got the NMBS first. TBS just had to send back and then got the right one. Okay. Truck Plus versus the Truck Norris. The Truck Plus is better above 5,000, and the Truck Norris is better below that. So that's why most people get the smaller cam, because that's where you do most of your driving. Hi, are you guys done barking? I mean, what's up? Did you make the neighborhood safe from cats and squirrels and raccoons and stuff? Or a butterfly? Or a leaf? Or a stick? Ron, what's going on? Yeah, I'm excited about the Metro, mostly so that I can take all the interior out of it and just sanitize and just steam clean the whole thing. I'll steam clean the whole inside. Can you get gear sets for 150 in the Metro? Yeah, it would do that, but it would do it at a fairly high RPM. But there is another final drive for that was not used in the Metro transmissions. And not even used in the XFI transmissions. It was actually used in a single cam 4-cylinder that shares that transmission. And it's really, really tall. It's like a 352 or something. Because all the other final drives are high 3s and then into the 4s. Some of them are 430s or something. And I don't want any of that. I'm all about the, let's get the top end stuff. My top end is unlimited. Is anything worth considering buying during the top 30% Holley IRS sale? I need the wiring to convert the Holley HP small block Ford to LS possibly. Yeah, that's a good deal. And from the looks of it, prices on everything is just going to go up. Nitrous doesn't need high pressure and brings a lot more stuff to burn. How does a ton of normal air make as much pressure before hurting things? Well, you're talking about two different things. We're talking about using the compressed air to supercharge the motor as opposed to using a turbo or a supercharger. You can then add nitrous on top of that. The nitrous does a different thing by freeing up the oxygen molecule in the combustion chamber once it reaches a certain temperature. But we're talking about a supercharger deal. And the supercharger could, if we run it on gas, the supercharger could run in a different class. To run nitrous, you have to run in a fuel class. What's the compression on the motor? I think it's going to be, I need to check that out. I think that the NA motor is like 9-1. Let's see. 9.5, it says. And has a 379 diff in it. Yeah, so that's a 379 because that's the mileage one. But then there's one that's even taller gear than that, taller final drive. But it's not from that. At least that's what this thing is telling me. The Holy Grail. And so what compressor? Yeah, it's still saying it's 9.5-1. But I'm putting different pistons in it because I have forged pistons. I have a set of forged Wiseco pistons. Chick magnet driving that metro in upscale California neighborhoods. Not this one. People don't even want to stand near it. Just bought Extreme Honda B Series book. I'm familiar with that. I looked up your channel to subscribe to it. Turns out I was already looking forward to learning. There you go. Does anyone experiment with adding different metals to fuel? Like I know lead used to be what would happen, I wonder, with aluminum. Playing with F40 transmission, usually LS4 engines. We found diesel applications in Europe had much taller gears. Yep. How fast high can you push the Metro up to speed? I want it to go more than 150. Any plans to make a big block Chevy cam in the vein of your current LS cam? We're talking about that. I'm talking about Ford and big block. Would you have a pressure sensor in the coolant system to watch for pressure increases due to boost leaking into the coolant system at high levels of boost with a fuel ignition cutout at a certain PSI? Yeah, if you can set your computer up to that, that's fairly common. I'll be ordering a Truck Plus tonight or tomorrow. Thank you. Tell Jimmy when you order, tell him that you're a live feed member and you get a free shirt. Would that work to help prevent damage from boost leaking past head gaskets? Yeah, pressurizing the coolant system. The concern more is that you would get water all over the track and that you could also save the motor before something really bad happened. Should I try buying a mid-range brushless PWM electric fan for my limited space radiator and a Fox body? Trying to throw money at problems. Does it have a shroud? A fan shroud? I have a crazy idea. I'm trying to workshop it with some talented minds. And you came here. That was obviously your first mistake. In theory, would a single medium-sized turbo be able to compound feed 2 larger turbos? Yeah, it depends on the size of stuff. It depends on whether you are able to get that turbo spooled up and then get bigger ones to come into play. 14-1 static as recommended by Steve Brule. For what's that for, Jet? Richard, that's because you need sleeveless flannel shirts and mullet when you're all the girls that ride the metro. I see. I need that. I need a like a Velcro mullet. That would be good. If you can control both air and fuel, things can get real interesting. On what are you talking about? Normally, big turbo feeds a smaller turbo. You got to do the math of the pressure ratios. Yeah, it's a complex thing. And I don't. I mean, a lot of times, can you? Maybe. Should you? Is it necessary? And that was one of the things I was going to talk about tonight too. Also, is that should I consider a compound setup for this? Because I've done it on the Metro already once. We did it with a stock turbo, which I don't think is ideal. And I just don't know for Bonneville that a compound setup is necessary because I'm not running. It's not like I need a lot of pressure ratio. I have more pressure ratio available in the turbos that I have. And so do I need that? Do I need more of that? Compressed air at a ton of pressure doesn't create any heat. The compressed air supercharging, the charge temperature is below zero, is at or below zero. Live feed members get us a free shirt. I've been saving up for those BTR push rods, but was waiting for free shipping. That's why you're here, man. You guys get the benefits. Do you have a Richard Holdener Performance livery wrap for the Bonneville car? No, we don't have stickers. Talking about running a wrong cam sticker. It'd be awesome to count me in for a big block Chevy cam if we fall through. 6 months. I don't know when it would be. I don't know. We haven't even talked really in detail about it. That's just something we were throwing out there. And I don't know what the order would be for the different cams that I would think about. I'd like to do a small block Ford also and a big block Chevy. I'm not really interested in doing a small block Chevy. There's just too many of those. The other one I would think about would be a Hemi. Yeah, Clayton, you just keep workshopping all that stuff, man. Nobody knows the best compression of every motor or cylinder jet. What I would need you to define best. I'm gonna slip you a mullet wig. You have to wear it on live. I got Brule to wear one, not a mullet, but a wig. He was the stand-in for our model that we had on one of the shows I did. Do you have any used camshafts for a 6-liter? Yes, I do. What is it you're looking for? Compound turbos can get crazy high boost. Yep. Yeah, I don't think we need 100 on this thing. Yeah, Charlie, so you're going to use a conversion, that Langenfelter conversion? The guys at West Tech have used those, and I've seen those used in vehicles that required that. We don't do that on the engine dyno because we can just select whatever thing that we want. Thought is I'll have a little more down low and reduce the boost lag. Yeah. I think you're going to an extreme to try to solve a fairly easy problem. You put intercoolers before and after the turbo. Yeah, that's what I would do. Hey, doggies, come here. Come on. We have a slide up like curtain, and when we open that so they can look outside and protect the world, they're going nuts. Be interested in buying an RHP version of the Trick Flow Stage 2. Oh, Cam. Yeah, it would be something like that, probably. Would you do a collaboration with Steve as he has a dyno now? Yeah, I talked to Freiberger already about coming down there to do stuff. And I liked Olsich. Olsich is like, he's a Renaissance man. He does all that stuff. The bottle cold air sounds really attractive for racing. It is. The limitation is that you have to have a giant, for guys making lots of power, like let's say that you had a 1,500 or 2,000 horsepower thing. The size cylinders are pretty big, and so there's extra weight. But the nice thing is, I know when they tested it, they've run a bunch of testing on the initially on their test bed Camaro that they had, and they were able to make a lot of power. I think that they doubled the NA power output at like 7 or 8 pounds, if I remember right. And when they did the testing at Westech, they could run full timing in it and stuff, and it just because the charge temperature is so low, it's really impressive. But again, it's not without its issues. Yeah, Clayton, let me know if you do that. That's a lot of tubing and a lot of plumbing, and make sure you have intercooling in between them and all that stuff. Eric Street strip with a carburetor, flat top pistons. .502 Mark IV flat tappet cam and gear set. Having issues finding a timing cover that will fit without hitting the gears. I don't know about part numbers. I know that there is a timing cover. There is a thicker timing cover for that. Check with Comp. They might have one. That's probably what we would have used. To each of their own, but I can't rob power from one end of the crank to add some to the other end. Well, technically, you're adding it to the whole motor when you drive a supercharger. The 1 liter displacement works well. It's chosen mostly just because of the class that we're in. You need big cylinders and high flow valves. Yeah, they went through a lot of design and test and research and development to get that set up to work. Pulled apart my 454 and the rod has copper on the part where the bearings sit. One of the rod bearings has the tang bent in and the journal, and the crank looks perfect. Is the bearing still there, or is the bearing down to copper? I need the push rods I ordered to be immaculate. I'm pretty sure that they will be brand new. How did I get in contact with you? I'll send you what I have. What do you have, Eric, that you're talking about? Oh, you want to use camshaft? Why not run 100% oxygen? Because it's not very stable. They tried doing that, and that was a lot of testing that they did during the war, and that's not as stable as running nitrous oxide. Are there any pros and cons to running 58X versus 24? No, that it doesn't make any difference. Looking for a standard bore, big block Chevy dome piston, a hydraulic roller cam. I don't think I have any hydraulic roller cams. All right, Nathan, we'll see you later, man. I believe it would explode. That's the problem that they had was fire and also uncontrolled, like kind of uncontrolled combustion. It just didn't work. Because that's always everybody's first thing is, well, if you're running nitrous oxide and you want to liberate the oxygen molecules, want to just eliminate the middleman and let's just run oxygen. I mean, I remember being in my probably my junior high chemistry class and asking that. I'm like, well, let's just use the oxygen, right? Like, yeah, that's not a good idea. The bearing has very low copper showing, seemingly not enough to be the reason the rod is coated in copper. Is the rod coated in copper on the outside, or is the rod coated on in copper on the rod journal? Where does it have copper on it? Use cam, whatever I can find. Use. Okay. I don't know what else you're looking for, Eric, but I can put my email down if you want to send me an email. Any pros and cons of running nitromethane for the fuel class? Other than I've never tested it, but you can run nitromethane in that fuel class. Any pros? Okay, so in the comment section, type to Jimmy that we are on the live feed. Yeah, what did you want to get in on the free shirt, Tim? Is that what you're talking about? I want to say thanks for taking the time to answer all the questions. I'm happy. That's why I'm here, man. That's why I dig this stuff. Inside of the rod where the bearing goes is coated in copper. And you're saying there's nothing wrong with the bearing. There's nothing wrong with the back side of the bearing or the top side or the bottom side of the bearing. There's nothing wrong with the bearing at all. So my question, which I'm sure is your question, where did the copper come from? Yeah, Eric, just let me know what you're looking for. I don't know what other. I have cams. I have used cams. Green bubbles for the driver when going up Pikes Peak. Nitromethane might be a little hard on the turbo turbine. Probably spool up lightning fast though. Yeah, if it adds power, that would be good. Nitromethane, I think, is something I would try NA first and then try it with the turbo thing. I'd like to try it though. I loved watching the thing that Cletus did on it. It's neat to see that kind of power gain. And even if we just did a little bit, what Brule was saying is that when they did some testing with it, he said, and it seemed to be that the nitromethane guys that he's talked to that run in those classes, he said it seems to add like whatever percentage of nitromethane you add, that's the power increase. So if it's 50% nitro, you change the power by 50%, which is a lot. It'd be interesting to see you do a fuel test, 1 motor, 5 fuels, and talk about what happened. Yeah, I can do that. And I've talked about doing that for years. I want to do pump gas. The problem is that with pump gas, depending on, as long as it's not a turbo motor, it would be okay. It'd be an NA motor, I think, because then we could run all of the timing in the pump gas. Because if you're changing the timing, that's what's changing the power. So if the fuel makes you change timing because you don't have enough octane, then that's just power from timing, in my opinion. That's not fuel. I mean, the fuel allows that, but the timing changed the power. We know that because when we run, like if we run pump gas and we run pump gas, the motor's cold and we can run 30 degrees of timing in an LS. When we put race gas in, it doesn't do anything. And unless we put 100 in it that has like is oxygenated or something, or made some other major change like that. But the octane didn't do anything. If it allowed more timing, the more timing made the power. E85 does change the power, not a lot on NA motors, it seems. On turbo motors, definitely does. The methanol is probably going to do the same thing, I would think. PFI Speed did a fun video on it as well. Could use up to 40 degrees of timing. Clay Milliken says, when running nitro, forget about what you know about other fuels in the 90s, in the 90-10 mix. I can imagine. You need a fuel valve available to the driver because closing the throttle won't shut off the power once the fuel gets flowing. In what are you talking about, Dan? Are you talking about methanol, or are you talking about nitromethane? What torque converter stall and differential ratio would you recommend for a 5.3 L33 with a Chuck Norris cam for daily driver? I don't know why you would change any of that. I would just use what you have. And what vehicle is it, and what are you doing with it? Is it a truck? Is it a car? Are you just driving it around? Because you can, with the 5.3 and the Chuck Norris cam, or my low buck truck camshaft, which is available, you can use it with a stock converter. A converter will help with any camshaft, though. So if you do put a 2500 or 2800 stall converter in, it's going to accelerate better. Backside bearing has some copper showing in a couple spots. The spots are less than 1/16 of an inch, but 1/16, you'd think that the whole backside of the bearing you wouldn't think that it would have mostly copper. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that is then. How do 305 GM heads compare to TBI heads? I don't know how to answer that. I don't think neither one of them are good, but I don't know I'd have to go dig deep. And if you told me exactly what the casting numbers were, or you can go do this, just go look at the casting numbers. The thing that I would look for first is I would look at the big things. So what are the combustion chamber sizes? And that's going to dictate what compression ratio these things have. And then what are the valve sizes, which may give you an indication on flow. If you know what the casting numbers are, go to Stan Weiss or one of these other head flow sources online. Maybe you can get the head flow numbers and see. Those should give you an indication on what they will do. Neither one of those heads are going to be as good as Vortec heads. Nitromethane engines. Okay, once fuel gets flowing, closing the throttle only marginally reduces power. Top fuel engines will make 4,000 horsepower with the throttle closed. Does that much air leak by there for that? Or are they just getting the oxygenation through the fuel? Don't 305 heads that have a weird bore spacing. They're just, the chambers are smaller because the cylinder is smaller. And they usually have smaller valves before that so that they don't hit the edge of the bore. Slower flame front, not quite what caused the ability to move timing up. Also have to use 5-to-1 fuel ratios as well. Methanol, I don't think you run quite that rich. Brady, if you're talking about nitromethanes, it isn't 5-to-1. Maybe you're talking about methanol. Nitromethane is way lower than that. I think it's 1.7 or something. Let's see here. Yeah, stoic value of nitromethane is 1.7. There's so much oxygen in the fuel. Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking. 4,000 horsepower is a lot. So that's basically valet mode for the top fuel motors. Are those pumps, Dan? Aren't those pumps? Those are mechanical pumps, right? The fuel pumps for these things. Because I know the tank's mounted in front because of acceleration, but stoic on is 1.7, but the top fuel engine runs 0.5. Okay. What's the difference between an L86 and LT1? Just the intake manifold. More fuel than I thought I want going through the motor. It's almost hydrolocking. That's the problem. They have so much fuel flow. Now think about the power levels too. So the stoic value relative to the air is a lot. And then also there's a lot of those. There's a lot of both of those, and particularly the fuel. And then if you don't ignite that, it doesn't get out of the way. 2 mechanical pumps, yeah. Wouldn't everyone spool big turbos with air if it's so cold? That sounds like the answer. Why would you want to use cold air to spool turbos? I'm confused. 110 gallons per minute. Yeah, I remember reading a Hot Rod or somebody did a big thing on. I think this was way back. I can't remember whose top fuel car it was, but they were talking about that sort of technology, about what it takes, like how much fuel flow it is, how much they go through, where the pumps were located and all that stuff, how much the blowers take to spin. All of these, like, all this really cool, like, techie kind of geeky stuff is awesome. That's nothing but good stuff. 13 to 15 gallons per run. You can't let them sit there and idle very long, otherwise they will run out of gas. Been told the Vortec heads are prone to cracking. I don't have a lot of experience with Vortec heads because, quite honestly, I don't use iron heads on stuff. I don't know if the Vortec 305 heads are more prone to that than the 350 heads. I think the fact that they use them on truck applications and that people load the trucks going up hills and overheat them and do all sorts of bad things. But I just don't know. I don't know how prevalent that is. But if people say that it is, maybe it is. And then also, if you go get some from Wrecking Yard, you might have to check that. John Force's top fuel. Okay, that's who it was. But I thought it was Anderson or something. I thought it was his top fuel car. Yeah, that's a lot. I don't like to see if, well, I just don't know if we can get enough fuel to that Metro motor until we put, because the problem with the Metro motor right now is it's a throttle body injected thing. So it's the throttle body injection going into the manifold and then separating into the 3 channels, which is obviously it'd be easier to get good fuel distribution if you're only going to 3 channels rather than 4, and then the runners could be closer to the same length. That would be good. But we had the very impressive Suzuki Sprint motor, the Cultus or the Firefly or the Sprint, had port injection and turbocharging and intercooling and a vacuum advanced boost retard distributor, which is, that's all kinds of fancy. Got an 11 Silverado. Do you think it's got DOD, or do I need a DOD delete for it? You have to look at, I'd have to look and see, go to Summit Racing on all cylinders and look at what designation your 4.8 is. It should tell you. Look at your VIN number, and the VIN number will tell you what the engine is, and then just look up the engine and see what it is, see if it's DOD or not. Kimi, I don't know why you're going on cold air spooling turbos. We're using the cold air. We're talking about using the cold air as a supercharger. And then so it acts as just like with a turbo, when you add boost from a turbo, you're adding pressure and airflow to the motor. Colder air is better. It makes more power. And then if you want to use that supercharged version to then spool up a bigger turbo, you could do that. Because basically what you're doing is you're making a compound setup, whether you're using a smaller turbo and a bigger turbo, or a supercharger and a turbo, or a compressed air supercharger. It's still a supercharger, a compressed air deal and a turbo. You could do that, because anything that you could do to get to make more power, it will spool up turbos. Most of the turbo heat is coming from compressing the air versus the hot side. Yeah, if you're talking about the charge temperature, that's coming from compression. The amount of cam coming from an exhaust is larger than what it feeds into. Oh, CFM. It's not just flow. It has to have heat energy too. Fair share anti-lag. That's a different thing. That's a different thing. Anti-lag's kind of cool. It'd be really hard for me to do that. That just seems so destructive. I know guys doing it for drag racing. Sit there on the line, building boost on the line with no load. That tells you we have to trick this thing. And it's naturally not happy by doing that. Would like to see a super cooled intercooler. So what is the definition of super there? I wonder if a voltage clamp and 1-to-1 fuel pressure regulator will be somewhat reliable in my 01 Swift, so I can add the AMR. You don't need a 1-to-1. A 1-to-1 is not going to add anything. 1-to-1 is just not going to take it away. A 1-to-1 is just going to keep the delta of the fuel pressure the same. You need something that adds fuel, and that's not going to do it. You could, if you're talking about a voltage clamp for one of the other sensors like a coolant temp or something like that, you could do that. But the easiest way is just put an FMU on it. Just restrict the return line. Sadly, some Civics are worth now more than a Porsche. %. Boo those people. Why don't you like the 86%? They want to see it. They want to see supercharging versus turbocharging. What's wrong with that? Oh, boo the people who aren't part of the 86%. Minus 240 or whatever, some liquid nitrogen or liquid gas. Oh, okay, I see what you're talking about. I have wanted to do that for a long time. I wanted to submerge an air to air in liquid nitrogen and run that as the cooling. It would be fun. 1-to-1 rising rate clamp for map. Anything above 80 is a win. Yeah, that 14-15% is kind of the you guys are knuckleheads. The knuckleheaded 14 to 15%. Is the Metro blown gas coupe? I don't know. I don't know what class we're going to run it in yet. Whatever class it's in, the Hudson boys are going to have the record because they have like 370 records or something. They are the guys. And I've spoken to them. They're great guys. They're like racers. They do crazy stuff, and it's awesome. Would that supercharger be big enough for a trophy 4-cylinder? Not the AMR is not. It's about 150 horsepower is where that supercharger could be. Opinion on best cam for most horsepower gain on a 4.8. We would Adam, we'd have to talk more than that. There's no, I don't know what best cam you're talking about. I don't know what there's no, you are the only one that has the definition of whatever best means. If you want to put a camshaft in that can add the most horsepower over the stock cam, do you want all of the things that go along with that? Are you only interested in the maximum power? Because what's going to happen is you're going to take away all the power down low and through a lot of the middle part of the curve in your quest for peak power. So if you want that, you can do that. Most people don't want that. Are you going to chop the top? No, I'm not going to run it in a class where we would chop it. I think the Bank small intercooler they made is pretty sturdy and it's rated for some weird things for marine applications. Yeah, Michael, I want to do a land speed thing with the Metro. The AMR flew apart. Mine didn't. It had part of the coating came off of the rotor, but it still spins. We are looking at blown modified GT. Okay. Phil and Tina, what's going on? Yeah, I have a listing of all of the classes and all of the records that we would consider. The thing that I want to do is there's an event coming up in July that's an extra event that's not part of, not Speed Week and not World Finals, and it's not even the FIA one that's in between those two. It's another event in July. It's going to be hot out there. Is there a rule swapping you preventing you from swapping the motor? There would be in some classes, but not in all of them. We could do a motor swap. Trying to better low end torque on the 4.8, thinking a turbo, but wanted to throw a cam in there first. A cam is going to do nothing but hurt low speed power. I mean, you can put some in there that would be okay, but the best thing you could do to help low speed torque on a 4.8, long tube headers, a tune, and a torque converter. Could feed, I'm sure that should be feed your nitrous through the intercooler. It would be cool. Transferring much heat from the gas, though. Didn't you all measure intake temps of the nitrous? There was not too much difference. We were blowing nitrous through an air-to-air. And there might be a better way to do that, like seal it all and use it. But if you had nitrous there, you'd have to use CO2. You couldn't use nitrous, because if you had nitrous there, they would probably put you in a fuel class. Even if you told them, I'm not using it for that, they're like, this is not our first rodeo. What if that leaks and goes in? Yeah, I could see that. Maybe find a wreck Kawasaki. Yeah, no, 1 liter bike engine. In fact, the guys I was just talking about, the Hudson boys, have done that. They've run bike engines in them. Twin AMRs on the trophy. That would probably be enough to do something. I mean, I think ultimately it would be better just to run an M90 on the trophy 4-cylinder. Have you considered putting your Metro in a tunnel? Air can be done for 1,500. Is that true? And I was going to ask if it could be chopped a little, but not noticeable. No. We're not interested in cheating. We don't have to do that. I could take that car, right? If we put 200 horsepower in that car, it'd go 150. And then in different classes, I can do other things. We can obviously always lower the car, but we can put an air dam on it. We can put all kinds of things on it. Get a belly pan, all kinds of stuff. Again, depending on what class we're in. The most helpful thing would be the air dam. And then if I can put an extension off of the back of the roof above the hatch. Regarding the 90 horsepower cam from the other night, have you contemplating going in the other direction and creating a Super Richie Stage 1 cam? I have. There's already been talk about that. The problem is I don't know that you can get, like at 2,000 RPM, I don't know that cam timing can get a whole bunch there. And if it does, you end up losing all of the gains that you get on top, unless you have a VVT situation. 406 is gone. Thinking of turbo 400, replace it. Yeah, and a converter would be good for that, Adam. A 5.3 bottom would help the 4.8. I was just going to say that, Michael. You might think about just going bigger. Any chances you sell a used Dominator ECU on your garage sale? I don't have any of those. The one that I use is Westex. Take a Geo to Arkansas and race. Well, why do I want to go to Arkansas? What's there? Not that Arkansas isn't good enough to go to. I just wonder if you're talking about some sort of race or something. We will close out our poll at 86 and 14. Have you heard about the 420-inch LS engine that broke, that made 1198? Yeah, that's Ben's. Is Hemi Smallbuck Ford head on the LS? Is this a record? How impressive is this? I don't know what you mean by record. I don't know what you count as. It's not in the Guinness Book of World Records. It's not a land speed record. It's not that kind of thing. But I don't know that I've 1198. I'd like to see some of the drag race stuff. I know that it's been close to that. Razorbacks are there and Walmart. Okay. I know that the drag race, like I said, the drag race stuff I know has been better than 1100. I don't know where that is though. That's an impressive deal. I think that's Ben from the EFI University. One more minute. And then I'm back to Metro Land. First, I need I got a whole list of things here. I need a transmission with a 5th gear. I need a final drive for Bonneville. I need tires. I need the RP head and main studs, MLS gaskets, intake and exhaust valves, springs, fix the intake, injector and pump, injector bungs in the intake, the rail, ECU, harness, intercooler. I'll probably use a Haltech for this, which would be cool. Turbo, exhaust manifold, cage, and you just, that's just one thing. That's just 4 letters, cage. That's a lot of stuff. Seats, fire extinguishers, fuel cells, intercooler. Because I'm not going to use the factory fuel tank. And we might use that as a transfer thing, but I'll have a dedicated small fuel cell to run the motor. And then another fuel cell like we had in the Civic, I like because that works so well for the ice water for the intercooler. The type 2 or second example in the CAT book should help extend the rear bit. We're looking at the first type with maximum size, spill plate, trade some drag for stability. Yeah, we had, if you look at the way that the Civic was done, we had end plates on it too, just to keep it straight. I mean, when the axle popped out, it didn't want to go straight anymore. Matt's 2008 wheel horsepower 5.3 stock bottom end Canyon finally blew up. Yeah, he put a lot of years and a lot of miles on that thing. If you're not sucking salt air into your sprint motor, you'll be ahead of the competition. Yeah, we're not grabbing it down that low. Yeah, there's no Trailblazer SS up there right now, Phil. The one that they sent me to test, because I want to test everything before I put it up on the site, was a RecPort version, so we couldn't test it. Picked up a 500 Cadillac motor, boarded a 508, small cam, head studs, ported polished head, aluminum intake, Edelbrock. Yeah, that's all good stuff. That should be a fun motor. Cadillacs are cool. It's big, lots of torque. I'm sure that the horsepower is probably in the high 300s or low 400s. I'm guessing for that. I don't know how well. No, I know nothing about your cam timing other than it's a small cam. I don't know what that means. I don't know what specs that means. And then I don't know how well the heads are ported. And then how much they're taking advantage of anything, even if they are ported, if the camshaft's not very big. But what I can tell you is the one that I had, which was a 500-inch Cadillac. It had a mildly ported head. It had that small crane cam, which was like a 212 or a 218. It had an Edelbrock intake manifold and a Q-jet on it. And ran headers on it, and it made 380 horsepower and 525 foot-pounds. I'm ripping VHS tapes tonight. Had to drive 2,000 miles for these bad tapes. Hope they're worth it. Need a 500 Cadillac for no reason other than it's big and different. Cruising with Kevin. I've got a 500-inch Cadillac. If you want it, it will be for sale. It's like the first time you see a Trans Am. I'm gonna sell that motor that I got from David. And I didn't even list everything on my list either. There's a lot more stuff. But on that note, it is time to go, and I will see you guys all tomorrow.